I'm a senior art director at Isle Rocket Studios in St. Joseph, Michigan. I've been there for the past 3 years. That's kind of bringing my time in commercial photo and videography to about 8 years. I graduated from the TDMP program in 2013. And during my time here at Ferris, I had 2 awesome internships, one with the Traverse City Film Festival and one with Lawrence Productions, both of those contributing to where I am in my career and doing what I love every single day. So I'm gonna kind of jump right into it here. From grip to director's chair, my climb through advertising. Super dramatic title. That being said, that's what it was. I have climbed my way from being a grip, and now I get to direct major brands in photo and video. So I'm gonna kind of talk to you guys a little bit about that today, how I got where I am, my time at Ferris, and moving through that. You wanna jump to the next slide? Okay, so what I do. Senior art director. The number one question I get when I tell people my title is, what the heck is that? It is a super broad umbrella title. Something about the creative industry is titles change from company to company, from agency to agency. So what a senior art director might do at one agency, they don't do at the other. So what I do is I work in concept to creation. I primarily work in product and recipe, photography, and videography. So what I do is I get a product, I get a recipe, I concept how we need to develop content for that, and then I execute the content. I work for a company called Isle Rocket. We are a full service agency. So we do work in how that content is also presented. We do web design, we do UX, we do data analytics. There are parts of the company I work with every day. And then there are parts that I could not tell you what they do. But there is a spot for everyone at my company, which is really nice, and it gives our clients an opportunity to connect all of their resources. What don't I do is probably the better question. There are days where I'm the person styling on set. There are days I'm the person shooting. There are days that I'm the person telling everyone else what to do. So it varies. As a senior art director, that's what I enjoy. That's what I looked for in my career. I don't like to do the same thing every day. So that is how I ended up with that. Let's go ahead and move on. So topics I'm gonna cover today, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my time here at Ferris, the internships that followed, the year of freelancing and working for myself, my time at Johnson Rauhoff and Isle Rocket. I'm gonna talk about a couple of my favorite projects that I worked on. I'm talking about Isle Rocket's internship opportunity called Space Camp, and then I'm gonna touch real quick on some lessons learned. So how and why Ferris? The truth is I got really lucky. I verbally committed to play softball here when I was a senior in high school. At the time, I declared a communications major. I wanted to be a writer. That was the game plan. About a week before my orientation, I found out about the television digital media program. I was really intrigued by it. It seemed something more my kind of area. So I emailed, made a lot of calls, and my orientation a week later, I sat down with Fred for the first time. Since then, that's history, kind of in the books. So the person that I would be wouldn't be right if I didn't mention my dad. He was actually a keynote speaker here in 2013. He was the one that actually found out about the television digital media program for me. My dad was in aerial sports broadcasting. He's known as the grandfather of aerial photography. He thought it'd be a great idea for me to take a look into this career and obviously kind of try to follow in his footsteps. My dad, it was his idea to put the camera on the bottom of the Goodyear blimp. I grew up in TV trucks. I've been to more World Series outside of the stadium than probably anyone else my age. My dad traveled 300 days out of the year, broadcasting major sport events. I was like, you know what? That sounds really good. I want to do that too. So we can go ahead to the next slide. So that's how I ended up at Ferris. However, about a semester into my first year here, I decided sports wasn't for me. I actually took Nick's script writing class and realized that I wanted to do more storytelling than sports kind of allowed. And that's where I kind of shifted away from the sports mentality. First off, congratulations, you go to Ferris. I have interviewed all over the state, I interviewed all over the Midwest and all over this country, and it's usually, especially here in the Midwest, is one of the first things that say, hey, you went to Ferris, we like that. This program gives you the opportunity to get your hands dirty, and more importantly, it lets you figure out what you don't like. Too often do I see kids come in to interview with me and they're like, well, you know, I like this, I like that. So when did you do this and that? Oh, I haven't done this and that. I've only read about this and that. So congratulations, you get the opportunity to get your hands dirty, and that's really cool. During my time at Ferris, I call it my formulative initialisms. These two, the TDMP program and Ferris State, allowed me to almost start working before I graduated. You know, if you were to check out my LinkedIn right now, I tell people I started my career in 2012. And that's true. I started working in this industry following one of my internships, which I'll touch on real quickly here. Let me check my notes. Okay, so let's jump on over to the Traverse City Film Festival. So when I finished my sophomore year here at Ferris, there we go, the Traverse City Film Festival. So after my sophomore year here, I interned at the Traverse City Film Festival as a production intern. So once again, a broad title. I not only shot for them, I edited, I did graphics for them, I organized green rooms, kind of all over the board. So what the Traverse City Film Festival internship is I went there at the beginning of the summer, moved into someone else's house in June, and I stayed there to the end of August when the Traverse City Film Festival happened. It was an unpaid internship at the time. And because of that, I was able to use my networking within the Traverse City Film Festival to start working. I was really lucky. When you get the opportunity to internship in a small community, which is a lot like Big Rapids here, the opportunity to work with these different companies, you make a lot of connections. So at the Traverse City Film Festival, I not only was a production intern, but I also worked at the movie theater. And I got to talk to a lot of people, and through that connections, I worked with a production house up there, and which is when I started gripping. In and out of the summer, I would do local news shoots, I would carry cords, I would get coffee, but I would also get to see that one-on-one interaction with those smaller teams. So I felt like that was super helpful with that. This internship was not a graduation requirement. It was something I went out and found for myself. I call this the foundation of my career because it really lined everything else moving forward. It was an opportunity to make those connections that when I started to freelance, I still had. So I'm very grateful for that experience. Let's go ahead and move on to the Lawrence Productions. So this was my big TDMP graduation requirement. When I was at Lawrence, I was there from January till June. I worked with brands including Eaton Corp, Maple Hill Auto, Mercy Health, and became kind of Frederick Meyer Gardens, and what became my pet project was the Kalamazoo Family Children's Services. My internship at Lawrence Productions was unpaid. Because of that, the owner of Lawrence Productions would allow me to edit in the evenings. So I'd edit overnight. I was a way to kind of pay my bills. My experience at Lawrence, I'm super grateful for. It is one of a very old, long-standing production house in Kalamazoo, Michigan. They're still around. They're about a 2 or 3 person production. What was really nice about that is Lawrence taught me the mentality that it was perfection over everything. We would spend hours on these projects, perfecting them, rounding them out, making sure they fit the exact need. It's not always like that. But going into a production house in the beginning of my career like that, it allowed me to really set a standard for my work moving forward. Now, one of the other things leaving Lawrence is with those after hours editing, I was able to continue those connections after leaving my internship. Go ahead and slide to the next page. All right, so working for myself or something like that. I spent about 2 years after graduating, officially graduating from Ferris, freelancing. I was like 22, super angsty. I didn't want a 9 to 5. So while most of my income came from bartending, I got the opportunity to continue working for myself, working as a freelancer, gripping, editing, putting my hands in all areas. Kalamazoo Family and Children's Services stayed as one of my clients. Now, at 22, I couldn't afford to work for free. I couldn't afford to volunteer. They paid basically nothing, but it was a very satisfying job to give back and to help these families, and it gave me really compelling stories for my demo reel, for my portfolio. One of the big things I've stressed to you guys is you're going into kind of a selfish career. Like a lot of these companies that you'll work for, that I work for now, they're just here to make a lot of money. Give back when you can. I still work with programs like this. I donate my time quite a bit. It makes your career a little bit more fulfilling and have those passion projects on the side. So that was kind of, and I branched out after that. Not only did I work with the Kalamazoo Family and Children's Services, I worked with Child Protective Services in Berrien County. I worked with other organizations in Grand Rapids. It was a really nice foundation that I built at Ferris to continue. The next one I wanted to talk about is I freelanced. Go ahead and go back. This center picture. I freelanced for Merrill. I still do some photo editing, photo direction for them every once in a while. But at 22, 23, I wanted to find companies that represented me as well. I'm very outdoorsy. I wanted to travel. I didn't want to be tied to a desk. So I was talking to my dad about it one day, and he goes, you know what? Do something bold to get their attention, because they are flooded with emails every day of people wanting to work with them. So I downloaded one of their videos off of YouTube, and I recut it. And I said, hey, I can do this better. I can do this faster. Give me a chance. And that's how I became one of their regular editors. That was a great experience. I worked with a lot of adaptive athletes, which was kind of the area I stayed in, ice climbers in northern Michigan, all sort of telling stories about their sponsored athletes. Looking back, had I been the person that received that email at my company, I might have been a little pissed, but it played off well. So I appreciate that chance they were given. And then the last one I want to talk about is I was hired in as a camera assist for a job at KitchenAid. This was a story about a local chef in Fenville. They have this program called Makers. They tell stories about how people cook, how they use their products, all this stuff. Well, when I got on set, not only was I a camera assist, I was shooting and I was styling. One of them I had never done before. I'd never styled anything. I'd barely worked in food. It was put on by a company called Johnson Rauhoff, and they needed help in the video department. This is the job that carried on to my next one. Go ahead. So my time at Johnson Rauhoff. I was at Johnson Rauhoff for 5, almost 6 years. When I was there, I did everything. I got hired in as a camera assistant editor. I illustrated user care manuals. I ended up learning how to style, which is something, a career option a lot of people don't know about. So I made the content that was actually in the pictures. I was Sharpie's primary artist for a couple of years. That's actually what this picture is here. So not only did I have to source the car as a producer, I had to color all over it. So talking a little bit about here, this shot up here is from Contigo. So Contigo is like a thermos brand. It's a water bottle brand. This shot was done in Chicago. They released a line called Lux, and they wanted their water bottles that you can get at Walmart to look really high brand. So we took it a little bit high fashion. I also worked for Irwin. With my time at Johnson Rauhoff, that was a whole different ballgame. I know nothing about tools, and then suddenly I had to. So that was a lot of fun. I also worked with Hatteras Yachts here. So I would spend 2 or 3 weeks out of the year on a yacht taking pictures of people on these yachts, of power fishing, of things like that. So that was a really exciting experience. And then on the top, I did find my home with food photography. That's kind of my bread and butter now. That's what I enjoy. I not only art directed the shot, but I also did the food styling in it. So I talk about here, I have it laid out lessons of 3. In advertising, they say, and in most companies, they say, you can do something well, you can have good content, you can have fast content, and you can have cheap content. It's usually pick 2. At my time at Johnson Rauhoff, you can go ahead and switch to the next slide, I had to do all 3. It's a small agency in Benton Harbor, Michigan. I was pushed there to work with these major brands to put out high-level photography and videography while still doing it really cheap. At my time at Johnson Rauhoff, I had to be really scrappy. Like a lot of these shots, this is one of my stylist hands. We didn't have money for a hand model. You know, this is at a public beach that we didn't have a permit for. Like all of these things that we had to get around to put off these high-level photography. So the couple of brands here, this is Contigo once again, one of those high-level shots. This shoot is actually in front of an open garage door. We made it look like a living room. This is for Orvis. This is shot on a black suite. This is for Baby Jogger, which was a very fun shoot. Have you ever worked with children? It will really test your patience. And you know, we did stuff with Mr. Coffee, with Sir La Table, all sorts of stuff. So while I cried a lot during those 5 years, I'm really, really thankful for my time at Johnson Rauhoff because I learned how to make something with nothing. I think having that opportunity at the start of my career has really made me more valuable moving forward. So for that, I am very, very grateful. And to walk away saying I've worked with Sharpie, I've worked with Rubbermaid, I've worked with Contigo, I've worked with Orvis, all of these major brands, KitchenAid, it's huge, these global brands. So when you're looking for jobs early on in your career, I really do stress that. Look for the work this company is doing and who they're doing it with. Go ahead. So now I am at Isle Rocket, something corporate, okay? So Isle Rocket is a full service agency. Like I said, we do everything there. However, one of our primary clients is Whirlpool. I work daily with KitchenAid, Gladiator, Maytag, Jenn-Air, so all across the board. I've spent a lot of time with the Maytag man. Every drop, so Whirlpool's an umbrella company with all of these other brands underneath it. I say it's something corporate because while I am in the advertising agency world, I'm working with a corporate company. My studio is at a corporate company, so it gave me really a nice balance. The advertising world has a reputation that's it's high stress, high volume, and while I do have those days, working with that corporate balance, I'm allowed to have an outside life. I work a 9 to 5. It's awesome. That's something, you know, when you think about what kind of life you're creating for yourself, that was really appealing to me. I grew up with my dad traveling all of the time, with him not being home. And I didn't want that for myself. So when I found my home at Isle Rocket, that's something really appealing to me. So just kind of talking through some of the stuff on here. These are from photography shoots from within the last year. These top 2 are for a brand called Jenn-Air. If anybody is aware of Jenn-Air, they had their very controversial Bound by Nothing commercial probably 4 or 5 years ago now. Jenn-Air is a kitchen brand. They are very sexy. Everything is black, dark. I propped a refrigerator with shoes before. They show everything in the kitchen but food. So it's within Jenn-Air, there's 2 brands, so anytime we prop, we have to work with those. These are just a nice couple examples. We'll actually be talking about this top one here in a second. They're smoke and brass, they're statement pieces. It's one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on, so I'll walk you through that. Every drop, I get the opportunity to work with a lot of models on set. Kids are fun, kids are challenging. You gotta be able to move. This was for an every drop shoot where we were actually highlighting water. What's kind of crazy about all 6 of these images is they're all shot within the same building. Our studio in Benton Harbor has about, at any time, 8 sets live. At times, I'm art directing 5 out of those. So I kind of live at that studio, moving around, working with the different sets. Here's Maytag. So one of the jobs of an art director within it is not only am I creating those content, but I'm trying to create impactful creativity to improve a brand. So little things within this picture you don't see. I'm talking about Maytag. Blue lives everywhere within there. We will never put red in a Maytag set. Red is KitchenAid. Things like that. Those are all things I have to consider when I'm propping a set. Maytag, in contrast, this is Whirlpool. You also have to consider, while they're both laundry products, you have to consider your consumer. Maytag tends to have a higher age bracket, lower cost. So when you're propping that, you want it to be relatable to your consumer. And then actually Maytag, these are one of the more iconic pieces that you see. We call them our low light photography. They're shot on a black sweep. They're just supposed to make the water look really cool. So that's kind of what you want to flip to the next slide. I'll Rocket. I also get the opportunity to work with Gladiator, which is some of my favorite stuff. We have a full garage. Actually, we have 2 full garages within the studio at any time. We just did a rebuild of the Gladiator sets here. So this is a brand new set. We were highlighting that mini fridge within it when we're propping. You know, once again, things to consider when propping. Those glasses not turned forward, the beer cans, those sort of things. Still trying to make it look relatable. Within it, we have some more Jenn-Air, Whirlpool, Gladiator, Maytag, all across the board. So I get the opportunity to kind of live within all of these different brands, but still have to keep them straight. So while I really enjoy the diversity of my brands, I like to play the juggling act surrounding it. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So talking about a couple of my favorite projects here. Smoke and Brass. So Smoke and Brass is what Jenn-Air calls one of their statement pieces. When that comes out, our Jenn-Air clientele are the people who have all the money in the world to have all the really nice cooking stuff, but don't actually cook. So these Smoke and Brass pieces were released. There was only 50 of them, and our job was to make them look really, really desirable in the middle of a pandemic. You want to go ahead and play that? Not have any audio. Okay, so I'll kind of just talk through this then. So this was all shot in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Within this, one of the big kind of factors with Jenn-Air is you never see people. We have to make the product interact on its own without any use of hands. So typically when you see products being modeled for like KitchenAid or Oster or whatever that might be, you see someone interacting with it. The real trick with Jenn-Air is that we can't. Other people touching your product isn't cool. So we have to take them completely out. What was really fun about this is we did have that water and that smoke effect. It took this whole video probably took about 2 weeks to shoot and even spent longer in edit. That was a really fun project to work on, one that I'm very proud of. The photography is also all live now. Like I said, one of these ovens is up there. It's probably $50,000, so they're quite expensive. Want to go to the next page? So the other project I want to talk about that we recently just did was the Jenn-Air columns launch. So while we try to typically stay away from food with Jenn-Air, one of the things that I do get to do is I do pop refrigerators. Refrigerators are kind of my favorite part of the Jenn-Air brand. One of the big things here is we try to make everything look like art, which is why if you look here, we have all of our figures. You don't want to see any plastic. Everything is very high level. We bring in that brass, which is a defining factor of the Jenn-Air brand. So every single thing in this refrigerator is thought out. That is someone's job. That someone is me and my food stylist. So the propping of this Jenn-Air refrigerator took about probably 2 weeks to get final approval, and then we were in photography for the remaining of the time. What I'm really proud about with this project is that this is now the standard that Jenn-Air goes by for their refrigerator propping. It changed not only the work that I do, but the work of the entire brand. So now when you see trade shows, if you were to go to a high-level kitchenware trade show, you would see this product in there. You can go to the next slide. Another one of my career highlights was the show. It's called Scraps with Chef Joel Gamron. It is sponsored by Sur La Table and KitchenAid. So Chef Joel was one of Sur La Table, which is a high-level cooking brand, similar to like William and Sonoma. It's probably William and Sonoma. Right below it is Sur La Table. They're top competitors. Chef Joel was one of their cooking class teachers. He wanted to be a TV star. So he had a great personality. Sur La Table believed in him. KitchenAid decided to back him up. And we did the cooking show. So this is during my time at Johnson Rauhoff. I had probably been working there 2 years. The head of the studio comes into my like little closet of an office and says, "Hey, have you done multi-camera production?" And I said, "Yeah, in college." And that was enough to put me in charge of building a studio. So this was a 3-camera production inside of a Benton Harbor studio. It was an old car dealership. And we sourced all local talent. We call them street talent. So it's not SAG. It was more cost effective for the program. Everything in that kitchen had to be fully functional. And he would teach these scraps recipes. So what it is, it'd be like, okay, we're gonna talk to you about how to use the collar of a salmon and how to make that food be edible now. So to try to reduce food waste. The cooking class was available for sale through KitchenAid and Sur La Table. However, it also talked about where he got the scraps. So we would travel to Portland and he would source food from that local area and then teach students how to make it. So that was a really, really incredible experience. Had I been at a big time agency or somewhere bigger, I would not have gotten the opportunity I did there. So for this cooking class itself, I TD'd and I directed, and then I would edit it. I also was in charge of styling, and I was a kitchen assistant. So I would come in from making the cuts during the live production, go wash all the dishes, and prop for the next shot. So it was a constant movement. It was high stress, high excitement, but it was really, really an awesome experience that I would not have gotten in another situation. So for that, I'm very, very grateful. Chef Joel and I are still in touch anytime I go to Seattle. I mean, it was really cool. I meet people all over the country through my work. So now I'm going to touch base on Space Camp. So when I think about my time here at Ferris and what this program led me to was my internships and the experience, hands-on experience I got in the classroom made me so valuable in my internships, which in turn turned out to my career. My company is starting an internship program this summer, so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about it. We call it Space Camp because Isle Rocket is all space themed. So you're gonna go to the next slide. So at a glance, it is 8 weeks, 32 hours a week. We are seeking candidates across design, copy, and studio. What's really nice about this internship is we're not just taking students. We're taking anybody creative. You have an opportunity to kind of sell yourself there. Maybe you're not in the TDMT program, maybe you're not in graphic design, but you really like to write. Maybe you're not in the communications department, but you think you have an knack for creative writing. Put in an application. We tend to look for people in unconventional ways. That's kind of how we get some of our best creatives, which is really exciting. That being said, if you are students, there's a place for you. We're asking that you're centrally located Chicago, Illinois, or St. Joe. If you're part of the studio team, I'm the representative for the St. Joe branch. You get to do all the crazy stuff that I do. You want to change slides? It is a paid internship. We do have work from home flexibility. When I'm not in studio, I work from home. That was kind of one of the crazy changes during the pandemic. I actually kept working throughout the entire pandemic. I just started shooting things in my living room versus a studio. It is a 4-day work week. We have few Fridays off, and there's industry experience. So not only we get to work with the major brands that I do, when sitting down with my company's leadership, I really kind of stressed what I talked to you guys a little bit about with the Kalamazoo Family and Children's Services. we have that opportunity here. We work with the Boys and Girls Club in Benton Harbor, and it's a really fulfilling opportunity. I do a lot of my volunteer work helping them with that. So not only do you work with me, you get to lead projects on your own. I will say that you would get a one-to-one membership, one-to-one mentorship, but you guys would also get the opportunity, there's opportunity for hire out of here. My company is growing, which is kind of crazy, considering the times we're in, but when everyone was stuck at home, everyone wanted to buy stuff for their kitchen. So it is a great opportunity, something to consider. Next slide. Oh, this is how you apply. This is important. alrocket.com careers. We also are asking that if you really want to stand out, send a 5-minute video. Max 5 minutes, please. Not actually 5 minutes, because I'll probably be the one watching them. But tell us why. You can do whatever you want. We've had an intern who just painted a picture once. It was kind of cool. So if you want to stand out, that's a good way to apply. I will make sure that I'll get this to Nick, that this is all available to everyone. All right, next slide. Okay, lessons learned. I want to kind of talk about these 3 big principles here I have with this idea of what I've learned throughout my career. And then I'll kind of run back through and then we can hit questions. I don't want to drown on too long. So write everything down. This was advice my dad gave me when I was in college. I go through these. It's cringeworthy how many I go through. At the end of the day, you guys are a brand. When I say write everything down, I mean everything. Today, this person commented that they like my jacket. You know what? Well, the next time I wear that jacket, I'm going to stand out to that person. Okay? Seriously, write everything down. You are constantly taking in knowledge when you're in the workforce. I stress that you keep that record somewhere. It's way better than notes in your phone. I know maybe I'm old now, but it is way better than notes in your phone. To have something concrete, to be constantly writing, your brain ingests it better. So write everything down. Number 2 is to think like a beginner. This was also advice from my dad. While I lead a team, I'm a senior art director at the age of 29, which is kind of unheard of. I've really kind of crawled my way through the advertising agency world pretty fast. I lead a team. I manage people. But even though that's where I am, I'm constantly learning. I've learned things from interns. I've learned things from camera assists. I've learned things from a stylist on her first day on the best way to handle dry ice. Like, it is constantly changing. And if you are not open to that, you're gonna miss out on so much. Think like a beginner. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. I think that's really important. And this last one is be all in with boundaries. When I graduated college when I was at my TCFF internship, my Traverse City Film Festival internship, called my dad and I was like, I'm crying. I worked 60-something hours this week. We're still 3 weeks out from the festival. I'm gonna die. Be all in. He's like, that's why you're there. That being said, you have to set boundaries, okay? I work a lot, but I have my phone set to shutting off emails from work at 7 p.m. I know 7 p.m. is still like 2 hours past 5, but I'm a little crazy. While my work, I define my work, it does not define me, okay? Be all in with boundaries. Set that time for yourself or you will run dry, especially in a creative industry. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, I'm sure my boyfriend over here is gonna laugh, but I do love my job. While I complain about it all the time, I love what I do. But if I did it 24 hours a day, I would hate it. And I wouldn't be able to be a good creative. I wouldn't be able to constantly be coming up with new ideas. So make sure you guys, when you guys are entering that workforce, if you don't do it in the beginning of your jobs, you're not gonna get that opportunity. I see people I work with every day that wake up first thing in the morning, answering emails, go to bed, answering emails, and the cycle continues. Well, now that's expected. Now everyone else is used to that. oh, I can text Sarah at 11:59 on a Saturday night and she's going to respond to me. Don't be like that. Like I said, you define your work. It does not define you. Set those boundaries. That's really, really important. I want to go to the next slide. I moved through a lot of things fast. I was a little nervous. Haven't talked about myself that much. Ooh, it disconnected. So I'm happy to jump back and talk about anything. You know, what I do for a living is like the stuff you see on YouTube. Oh, you put glue instead of milk. Yeah, that's what I do. If you guys have any questions in regards to that, I'm happy to talk through any of those tips and tricks or anything in regards to like my career. You know, I've been really fortunate having graduated from Ferris. Like I said, I got really lucky finding this program. And it's really kind of set me up. So I'm happy to answer any questions in regards to that. Anything? Oh, that works. Oh, okay. If you guys want, my contact information is up here. This is my website. You can contact me through my website or my email directly. The website is just an extra step. It goes to my email. colbycwittman@gmail.com. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. This is my personal email. So please reach out. Like I said, I'm happy to help in anything like that. Thank you. I was really worried no one was going to ask me any questions.
I'm so interested in what you do, particularly because you're from the TDMP program, but it sounds like there's a lot of photography involved in what you do as well. So during your time at Johnson Rauhoff, you mentioned that you started out as an editor and then eventually had a hand in creative direction and styling and photography. Can you talk a little bit more about what sort of motivated that, you know, evolution of your position and kind of how you approach those changes?
Absolutely. So when I graduated from the TDMP program, I wanted to do everything. I wanted to be in all aspects of production. I wanted to shoot, I wanted to edit, I wanted to deliver. And so when I was looking for my first job out of my first full-time job out of college, I looked for something like that. A lot of that too was determined by geography. I love living on the lake. I really wanted to stay in Michigan. During my time freelancing, I traveled all over the country. I worked in Chicago. I lived in Chicago. I had this opportunity to bounce around, but I found my home in Southwest Michigan. So when I decided to take the job opportunity at Johnson Rauhoff, the really big appeal was I wanted to figure out where I wanted to go from doing everything. So art direction all stemmed from that. I think I'm such a successful art director because I gripped, because I lit, because I shot, because I styled. And now I consider all of those when I'm directing a piece. So yeah, my motivation when going to Johnson Rauhoff was to get the opportunity to do everything. And from there, I narrowed my path. My foot in the door was editing, and I wanted in. So I took the job and made it known what else I could do.
And then one more question for you. What advice would you have for somebody who's looking to get into art direction?
So looking to get art direction. So now it's funny, I actually just hired a junior art director. So when I was talking with this guy about art direction, he had a really strong design background, but wasn't as strong in the photography background. So when I talked through with him, he had the desire to do the photography side. With art direction, nowadays they look for people that are well-rounded, not only in design, but in the photography aspect. You wear a lot of hats. You know, it's kind of just how it is now. But when I think about advice, I really think the way I did it was the best way to do it. I know that kind of sounds big-headed, but I was in the trenches for a while. And that gave me the opportunity to really visualize different ways to do things, which now makes me a stronger art director.
Thank you so much.
I actually just want to ask about like your favorite fake food item that you've made and what were the items used to make that? Because I think it's really interesting how you talk about like using glue as like milk. I've watched some of these videos and it's very interesting how they come up with presentations.
Totally. Do you want to go back to the Johnson Rauhoff page? Yeah, so let's talk fake food. So when you are in a styling kitchen, do not eat anything. Nothing is safe. For example, I mean, I'll talk about my favorite here in a second, but this bundt cake up top, while it looks delicious, you bite into that, there's probably 10 to 12 sewing pins in there. It's actually Frankenstein by 2 or 3 cakes. You have to think, when you guys bake at home, nothing comes out of the pan, right? Okay. So to make it look perfect, we glue, we pin, we do all sort of crazy things. If I remember correctly, those raspberries were there to cover up a hole. So something to think about there. I cover meat in WD-40. I do all kinds of stuff. I think probably one of the biggest ones people think about is so you have to think about it. When you're shooting, right, you guys have a certain amount of time for stuff. All right, I got to move to the next shot. Same thing with me. While a turkey might take X amount of hours to make, I don't got that time. So like the Thanksgiving stuff we're starting to shoot right now, especially for KitchenAid. So we're doing these elaborate Thanksgiving tables, and obviously there's a turkey on every single one of them. We usually pop a turkey into the oven for like an hour, not cooked, and then I paint it with molasses. So that's kind of one of the popular hacks. Pies are usually filled with mashed potatoes. Every once in a while, though, I do commit to it, and I'm like, I really want to eat this later, so I'm going to go through it all. But yeah, that's kind of one of the big things.
And your favorite one?
My favorite one. So I used to work for a brand called Food Saver. And I don't know if anyone knows what Food Saver is, but you like put the fish in and then you seal it and you can keep it for a couple extra, or you freeze it, whatever it is. We were doing the shoot. It was right at the start of the pandemic, and sourcing things was really, really hard. So we only were able to get a couple of full fish for this shoot. And normally, every day you replace them. We didn't have the luxury of replacing them every day. So actually my stylist on set completely gutted them, and we stuffed them with like newspaper. So that, it worked out well. It looked like a full fish, but it stunk like all holy heck. But yeah, that's probably my most recent favorite. All the quintessentials. A lot of times ice cream is made out of like icing with a lot of glue in it. Because ice cream melts on set.
Yeah. Really cute.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm from the animation field, and one of my favorite things of making is modeling an entire scene. So like say if I'm making a house, I go from like just planning phase and then just like if anything goes wrong between it, I can like just change it because it's all in a computer. When you're taking photos in real life, how do you go about planning, and like do you do any sort of previs, or do you just say, here's what I got, here's what I gotta do?
So it depends on the shoot. So one of the fun things about my job is I do work with products before they're released. So I work with a lot of prototypes. So there's some things that happen in production that I don't get to plan for. I didn't know this oven didn't actually light. I didn't know this. So I have to adjust in production during that time. But, a lot of times, like for Hatteras in particular, now this is up, we shot on the yacht for 2 weeks. I was down there a full 2 weeks before. Sourcing, planning, figuring out what a yacht was, because at 25, I'd never been on one. So I had to figure out how to direct my photographers on there to where the models were going to get changed. So yeah, a lot of pre-work does go into it. I don't know if that was completely your question. But.
I'm just saying like the pre-visiting. So like yes, you go on to like plan, but like what in that planning? I'll be honest, I don't even know what kind of question I'm asking myself.
Fair enough. So what goes into the planning?
Yes, like specifically, like do you know what clothing we're gonna wear? What do you?
Yes.
Like,
Okay.
Where
So
are you gonna film on location?
that's perfect. Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. Yes, that is all planned beforehand. I talked a little bit about my time at Johnson Rauhoff, being the idea of the threes, right? Pick two. We had to do all three. One of the ways they kept costs down is they would cut down on pre-production. Not the best idea, but they had a lot of really people that were familiar with the area, familiar with the products. So we ended up pulling it off quite a bit. But yes, pre-production is huge, especially where I am at Isle Rocket. Like I said, within my studio, we have about 8 sets that live permanently. So when I go into shoot in there, I have an idea what to expect. However, when we are building a new set, it's done in SketchUp. We talk to builders, we talk to interior designers, you know. I shop for props. I don't do a whole lot of propping anymore. When I started, I did quite a bit. Sometimes I get a little angsty and want to get my hands dirty, and I will. But I usually kind of direct the overall feel. So yes, prop shopping, wardrobe shopping. We do try-ons with models. When we do it, like say we just did a video shoot for a product combo washer dryer, and we did it in our small spaces set, which is our like apartment size set for Whirlpool. We had the model come in 2 or 3 days beforehand. We get that wardrobe approved before she comes in for her first day. So a lot of that goes in ahead of time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Alrighty.
Any other questions?